right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. This article is from newstarget.com. This came out May 1st, 2026. And the headline reads, it says, U.S. CENTCOM seeks hypersonic missile deployment to Middle East for potential Iran operations. Okay, so before we get to the main point, I want to read this article real quick. Okay, and we got it pulled up in the summary here on the left. All right, bear with me. So it reads, it says, proposed deployment of Dark Eagle hypersonic missiles. Request. U.S. CENTCOM has requested the deployment of the Army's Dark Eagle long-range hypersonic weapon to the Middle East for potential use against Iran. Status and limitations. The system is not considered fully operational and has previously suffered test failures. Only 8 missiles are currently available. Cost. Each missile is valued at approximately $15 million, with each battery estimated at $2.7 billion. Okay, this war is costing America, man, as we talked about. Strategic rationale. The deployment aims to counter Iranian ballistic missile launchers move beyond the range of the precision strike missile over 300 miles and serves as a signal of U.S. capability to Russia and China. Additional military options for Iran. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper is briefing President Trump on several potential military courses of action, including infrastructure strikes, launching a short and powerful wave of strikes to compel Iran to return to nuclear negotiations. Strait of Hormuz, seizing areas of the strait, potentially using ground forces to reopen it to commercial shipping. Special operations, utilizing special forces to secure Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Okay. Last points. It says regional context and risk. Operational environment. Despite U.S. claims of local air superiority, the theater remains high risk, with ongoing losses of U.S. MQ-9 drones and crewed fighters. All right, people are dying. Escalation potential. Analysts warn that introducing an unproven weapon system into active hostilities risk spiraling the conflict into a broader regional war or a nuclear confrontation. All right, so let's get into that. So check this out. This was posted on X by Information Liberation, right? It says Tucker Carlson says Mark Levin is not so subtly counseling President Trump to use nuclear weapons against Iran. Okay, so again, the point. Who can resist the will of the Most High? Okay? Nuclear war is God's will. Okay, let's make that point.
Here's what Mark Levin said on his Easter weekend show about what we ought to do next in Iran. Watch.
And the casualty numbers, as horrible as any casualty is, need some context. Let's look at World War II. The Battle of the Bulge, 80,000 to 90,000 plus casualties, deaths and injuries and so forth. Nearly 10% of all the casualties in World War II happened at the Battle of the Bulge near the end of the war. The Battle of Okinawa, 50,000 plus casualties, over 12,000, nearly 13,000 killed on that island, which is what convinced Truman that we would lose a million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. So this is a war or a peace mission to stop nuclear weapons that can blow away millions of Americans. Every bit as important as World War II. This is a crucially important military operation, war, call it what you want, peace mission. And we ought to be celebrating the success of our military, unifying around our military and our commander-in-chief, and urging them to complete the task so our country is safe from nuclear weapons by insane, suicidal primitives from the 7th century.
Did you catch that? Did you make it through the whole clip? It's not easy. It's not easy, but embedded in there, and that's why we prefer a transcript over the actual audio. Embedded in there is something you need to know. It's an argument that is being test-driven, and since no one, to our knowledge, has pushed back against it, may be in full operation now, it's an argument for nuclear weapons against Iran. And here's to restate, in case you couldn't make it through the accent, here's what he said. Nearly 10% of all casualties in the Second World War happened at the Battle of the Bulge, which, of course, at the end of the war. The Battle of Okinawa, 50,000 casualties, nearly 13,000 killed on that island, which is what convinced Truman, Harry Truman, the then president, 1945, we'd lose 1 million men if we didn't drop the atomic bombs that we did. Did you hear that? That's Mark Levin's counsel to our sitting president, Donald Trump, right now. You are looking at a choice between the catastrophic loss of your troops in a ground war or the use of nuclear weapons.
Man, hey, the least of the flock should draw them out, right? Jeremiah 49 and 16. It says, thy terribleness have deceived thee in the pride of thy heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, that holdest the height of the hill. Though thou should make thy nest as high as the eagle, right? As we read in this article about they named that hypersonic missile Black Eagle, right? CENTCOM has requested the deployment of the Army's Dark Eagle hypersonic missile, all right, to the Middle East for potential use against Iran, right? So it's all spiritual, right? America, you know, their flag is the eagle, all right? It says, though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Verse 17, also Edom shall be a desolation. Okay? America is going to be a complete desolation. Right? This is what Tucker's talking about. Also Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that goeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. As in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, in the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, no man shall abide there, neither shall a son of man dwell in it. Right? Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan against the habitation of the strong. But I will suddenly make him run away from her. And who is a chosen man that I may appoint over her? For who is like me? And who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? Let me read that in NLT, right? Same verse. Verse 19, it says, I will come like a lion from the thickets of the Jordan, leaning on the sheep in the pasture. I will chase Edom from his land, and I will appoint the leader of my choice. For who is like me, and who can challenge me? What ruler can oppose my will? And this is what the point I want to make again. Who can resist the will of the Most High? All right, and we're going to further expound on that, right? Verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, that he have taken against Edom, and his purposes, that he have proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. So Iran, this Iranian war, okay, which is being, brought in through the small hats, okay, the small hats are drawing America into this final war, okay, the war of Armageddon, okay. These tiny tops have drawn America in, okay, for this final war, World War III. Okay, and there's no stopping that. There's no changing that, right? It says, verse 21, the earth is moved at the noise of their fall, at the cry the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. All right, because the Lord is going to completely destroy this place, man. Right? So let's play some more. You see?
Which in a sense, if you think about it, just think about it for a second, is actually an act of peace. It's an act of peace. The most humane thing you could do is to end this now with nuclear weapons. That's the case Mark Levin is making to the president, who just last week recommended that all Americans watch Mark Levin's show. Okay. This is not like crazy dot connecting here. This is one-to-one. This is really obvious where we're moving. And again, we're moving toward the use of weapons of indiscriminate mass destruction, possibly nuclear weapons.
There you go. And what do they say about peace? Right? 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they should not escape. NLT, when people are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin, and there will be no escape. It's going to happen, right?
But non-conventional weapons. This is not like crazy dot connecting here. This is one-to-one. This is really obvious where we're moving. And again, we're moving toward the use of weapons of indiscriminate mass destruction, possibly nuclear weapons, but non-conventional weapons. Not bombs dropped from the air or missiles launched from launchers, but the use of weapons that have never been used in war ever. And the argument is the same argument that you heard in 1945, or didn't hear, by the way, if you're an American civilian. No one ever cuts you in on this. Thank heaven for Mark Levin saying it out loud so the rest of us can at least follow along and know what we're in for and implicated in. But the argument that it's actually much more humane to kill tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of civilians than it is to like fight it out with the Marine Corps on the rocky shores of mainland Iran. That's the argument.
Yeah. Okay. Nuclear war is God's will. All right. And there's no turning that back. Okay. Isaiah 14:27. For the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Washai of hosts, have proposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? All right. NLT. The Lord of heaven's armies has spoken. Who can change his plans? When his hand is raised, who can stop them, right? Who can resist his will? Okay, nuclear war, Armageddon, all right, is all part of the Lord's plan. Okay, to end this world. Okay, Romans 9:19. Then will thou say then unto me, why doeth he yet find fault? For who have resisted his will, right? And I just had that in the commentary. I want to read that point. Okay. You know, there's no peace, there's no change in this thing. Like Tucker was saying, we all know the direction where this is headed. Okay? For who can resist his will? The phrase underscores the belief in God's omnipotence and the idea that his purposes cannot be thwarted, right? Can be changed. It echoes themes found in the Old Testament, such as in Isaiah 46:10, where the Most High declares that his counsel shall stand and he will accomplish all his purpose, right? The radical question emphasizes the futility of opposing God's will, highlighting his ultimate authority over creation. This concept is central to understanding the biblical portrayal of God's sovereignty as seen in the lives of biblical figures like Job, who acknowledges God's unchangeable power. Job 42:2. This phrase invites reflection on the relationship between divine sovereignty and human freedom, a complex theological issue that has been debated throughout church history. Yeah, so because what you people don't understand is that you can't change the will of the Most High. Okay, men's goings are of the Lord. How can men truly understand his way? All right, he put it in the heart of these kings, all right, to execute his will. All right, Proverbs 21:1. Proverbs 21:1. It says, the king's heart, the king's mind is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Washai. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. All right, the Most High is in control of the minds of these kings of the earth, man. Okay, and he's moving these kings to bring in Armageddon. All right, nuclear war. And there's no stopping it, there's no changing it, there's no peace. All right, this is what you have to understand. This is the inevitable, right? Many are about to perish. Okay, Isaiah 34:2, like he was saying about the troops. Let me play that part again. He spoke about the mass deaths of troops, right?
Case Mark Levin is making to the president, who just last week recommended that all Americans watch Mark Levin's show. Okay. This is not like crazy dot connecting here. This is one-to-one. This is really obvious where we're moving.
Yep.
And again, we're moving toward the use of weapons of indiscriminate mass destruction, possibly nuclear weapons, but non-conventional weapons. Not bombs dropped from the air or missiles launched from launchers, but the use of weapons that have never been used in war ever. And the argument is the same argument that you heard in 1945, or didn't hear, by the way, if you're an American civilian, no one ever cuts you in on this. Thank heaven for Mark Levin saying it out loud so the rest of us can at least follow along and know what we're in for and implicated in. But the argument that it's actually much more humane to kill tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of civilians than it is to like fight it out with the Marine Corps.
Yeah, right there. Many are going to perish, right? Isaiah 34:2. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury is upon all their armies. He have utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter. Okay? Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of the carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. It's going to be a lot of bodies, man. Right? NLT. Their dead will be left unburied, and the stench of rotting bodies will fill the land. The mountains will flow with their blood. See? Verse 4, and all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as the leaf falleth from the vine, and as the falling fig from the tree. All right, those warheads coming down. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven, the ICBMs. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea. All right, that's Greek for Esau, Edom, and upon the people of my curse to judgment. Right? Verse 6, the sword of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, and with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord have a sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea, man. Okay? Which you can tie that to Babylon. Okay? There's going to be a great sacrifice. All right? And you people represent the fat of the lambs and goats, the kidneys of rams. Okay? The people of Babylon are going to partake in that sacrificial fire. Okay? Nuclear destruction, World War III. And the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. For it is the day of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai's vengeance, and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. You see that? So this is the payback. Okay? Spirit, NLT. Verse 8, for it is the day of Yahweh Shem Yahushai's vengeance, or revenge, the year when Edom will be paid back for all it did to Israel. Man. Ooh, man. This is where we at. That time is closing in. Right? Revelation 18. And yeah, we'll start at 5. And it reads, it says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High have remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she have filled to her double. How much she have glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore her plague shall come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord power who judgeth her. See that? So this is where this guy Tucker Carlson doesn't understand. Okay, this is all prophecy, and it can't be changed. Okay, this is the wrath of the Lord. Nuclear war is going to be the end times, man. Part of the end of this current world, this current age, man. So that's the point, man. Okay, at the door. Shalom.